everyone. Welcome back to ChroniTalk. I'm your host, Mykayla Lynn, and today I have a very special guest with me, someone who played a very big role in my own chronic illness journey. Aubrey was one of the very first people that I ever reached out to regarding primary immune deficiencies. So I am so excited to bring her on today. She's an advocate, a writer, and the founder of AubreyWithGrace.com. This is where she shares her journey with Common Variable Immune Deficiency. And I'd like her to kind of just dive into her story. So welcome, Aubrey, and let you get started.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share my CVID story. I'm originally from Kansas City, but I moved to Colorado to go to college. So during my freshman year of college, everything started off super normal. I really wasn't used to being sick. I was never sick as a child or had any kind of weird symptoms or anything. And then during my winter break of my freshman year of college, I sick with an ear infection and I went to an urgent care and they also told me that I had swollen lymph nodes. They thought maybe I had mono and it was just kind of weird, but I didn't really think much of it. And so I got antibiotics and it all kind of cleared up. And then over the course of the next 6 months, when I was back at college, I was pretty much sick all the time to the point where I always had strep or sinus infections, or I was just feeling congested and not feeling good and not wanting to leave my room. And I overall was just really confused, but I thought that people just get sick in the dorms and that's just what happens. And
Totally.
so I didn't really start seeking out answers until about like 6 months after it started. So the summer going into my sophomore year of college.
Okay.
I went back to my hometown and my mom encouraged me to go to um, an allergist. We thought maybe I was allergic to something. I had very little medical knowledge at all of anything.
Were they a two-in-one, or was your allergist just an allergist?
So he was also an immunologist. I didn't really know anything about immunology. So I went to get the allergy testing where they poke your back
Yeah.
and I got like 40 pokes and none of them came back like with any allergies. So then
Wow.
he ordered blood work. I just didn't realize he was an immunologist.
Fair.
I just did the blood work and then he called me and I was busy so I didn't answer and I got a voicemail and the voicemail was very ominous. I was really scared because there wasn't a lot of details in it. And so when I called him back, he diagnosed me with CVID and said I needed to start treatment and I'm going to come back in like 2 weeks and I'm going to start learning how to do subcutaneous immunoglobulin therapy. So that is how it all
Wow.
started.
Okay, so for our listeners, CVID is common variable immunodeficiency. So that was what Aubrey was first diagnosed with, and subcutaneous treatment would be with plasma. So this is like a life-sustaining treatment, and Aubrey is on this now. So could you also just share a little bit of your GLILD diagnosis with us as well?
Yeah, so after I was diagnosed with CVID and living with it for a couple of years, it was discovered that I also had swollen lymph nodes all over my body, including in my stomach, under my arms, kind of random places like that. And I was getting a lot of different scans. And then it was discovered that I also had these nodules in my lungs, and a very small percentage of patients with CVID, I think it's about 10 to 20%, also develop GLILD. That's basically these nodules in your lungs. It's an interstitial lung disease. And so it can lead to restraint on respiratory functions. And if it's not treated, it can get worse. And so I got the treatment for GLILD that was rituximab. And I know a lot of other people get that too. That I think is normally used for lymphoma patients or autoimmune disorders.
And what is that medication? Is that like a biologic, a pill? Like what is it that you're taking for that?
So it's actually an IV that you do for 7 hours, two different times, and that's one round. So you go in, you get the IV for 7 hours, and then you come back like I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later, and then you get the same IV. And then that's
Okay.
like considered a round of it. And some people do that like every 6 months. I only did it once, and then I was paired with an oral drug. Mine was called mycophenolate.
Okay.
And so then I was just taking that every day after, but now I've gotten to a point where I don't need either. So I just get pulmonary function tests.
Okay, so you don't need any treatment right now anymore because you're in kind of a remission in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So now it's just monitored. And then in the future, if it gets worse again, I might have to do rituximab again. I
Yeah,
was
for
told
sure.
initially that I would have to do it twice, but I only ever did it once. So that was really good, honestly.
So how often do you have to do pulmonary testing just so that they like kind of are keeping like a close eye on that
At least every 6 months.
every
It
six
used to
months?
be more like every few months, but yeah, and then I see my pulmonary doctor about every 6 months too.
So after you were in college and you got your diagnosis, like how were you navigating things? Like what was it like for family and friends? How was your time in college? Like how did you navigate that entire experience going through? I've just been diagnosed with something that's going to change my life.
Yeah, I mean, it was really shocking, especially as a young person. You don't think that you're going to be sick and you think that you're invincible, or at least that's how I felt before that. And it was hard because it's something that I'd never heard of and I didn't really even understand what it was for the longest time. I didn't know how to explain it to people. And I felt like when I was telling people about it, that I was making it up or it wasn't real. Like I knew it
Totally.
was real because someone diagnosed me with it, but I didn't look different to people. And it's not something well known. Like when someone gets diagnosed with diabetes, you say diabetes, people know what that is. And
Right. It's like
so
widely known and they're like, wow, like I understand what you're going through. But when you say it, some people look at you and they're like, Aubrey, what is plasma? And then you're like, whoa, there's so much explaining to do here.
yes, exactly. And it's complicated and it is a rare disease. So it's likely people haven't met someone else that has it. So yeah, it was really hard in the beginning. And I had already signed to live in the sorority house that year. So I was going to be living with 50 girls, sharing a room, sharing a bathroom. So there was no like,
Privacy.
yeah, like
Yeah.
no true comfort. Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna, be alone and figure this out. Like, I was pretty much going to be around people all the time. And so when I found out about my diagnosis, it was like end of July before my sophomore year. Then like 2 weeks later, I learned how to do the treatment. I went in a couple times to learn how to do the treatment. And then I was told that I would be doing the treatments at my sorority house. And I showed up to move in, and there wasn't even a desk in my room, which would have made it easier to like lay everything out on a desk. And so we had to work it out that I went in the guest bedroom to do my treatment, and there was a lot of different things that I had to figure out to make it work.
Yeah, that's really tough to navigate in a house full of other people. I mean, I find it tough and I only have a boyfriend here with me. So it's definitely like a privacy thing as well. I'm sure that you find it tough to put your needles in subcutaneous and be able to like be clothed properly enough to be around people. Like it's tough, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and if I want to walk around and go to the bathroom or eat, like I felt really weird in the beginning because I was like looks like it just looks weird. Like I have these
Yeah,
tubes
you
coming
got all
out from
this
my
hanging
shirt.
from you. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I just never wanted it to come off like I need attention or I need like people to feel bad for me. So I had a really hard time talking about it because I didn't want to come off that way. And everybody was really nice about it, and I was lucky to have a support system where everybody was really understanding. So I got really lucky there, and I think slowly over time I figured out how to talk about it and not feel weird about it.
Yeah, I mean, you were the first person to give me the confidence to feel like, I feel like I can take this on. Like, I was so scared in the beginning, and I reached out to you and was like, hey, like, I think I'm about to get this diagnosis. And it's been in the works since I was 19, which I found a commonality in between. Like, we're similar in age, got a diagnosis around the same time. Mine just wasn't fully diagnosed. It was on my file, but they were still trying to figure it out. And so I'm here in Canada, and everything looks so different than what it looks like in the States. And so I also want to dive into some of that and I guess how some of that looks different. I feel like one of the biggest things to start was you just mentioned going and getting your example shown to set up your treatment and stuff. Like, what did that look like? You went to the university and a nurse showed you. How did that work?
Yeah, so I was in my hometown, so I ended up going to the doctor that diagnosed me. So where I went to college, for reference, it was in a different state, so it was about 9 hours drive away. So when I was home, I was going to this other doctor, but they needed to show me before I went back to school because it was too far. And
Right.
so, I believe it was my mom, maybe my whole family actually. I think it was my whole family that they came with me, and it was an infusion room. So it was where people also got IVIG, which is the same treatment just through an IV.
Shout
And
out to the family. That's so sweet that they were all there. We love
I
that.
know, I know. Yeah, really sweet. And they wanted to learn too, since we were all trying to understand what was going on. And they wanted to be able to help me in case I had complications and things like that. So, yeah, it was really sweet. And the nurse basically just showed me how to set it up. She told me about a YouTube video too that I could watch once I was alone if I needed to. And then, yeah, I mean, it came the time to insert the needles, and I don't like needles. I don't like anything at the doctor, but now I just have no choice.
Yeah, it's so hard, right? You go from I don't want to do this to I have to do this. What?
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, I don't want to take, like, stabbing a needle in my stomach is so weird. And I think
Right?
that's why a lot of people don't ever end up doing SCIG instead of IVIG because they prefer someone to do an IV.
Yeah, so
So,
did you have the choice? Like, how did that look for you? Did they give you an option?
no, not really. When the doctor called me, he just said that SCIG was the best option for me because I was in school and because I was living in the sorority house, and also where I went to school, it wasn't like a small town. It's like a college town, but there's not as many like doctors and treatment centers and stuff, so I would maybe have to drive far away. And apparently with the once a month, which is IVIG, there's more up and down for some
Yeah, so
people.
very true. Yeah, it changes your trough like drastically. So I found a lot of support in some Facebook pages. There's this lady, Beth, that just runs this IVIG and SCIG Facebook page and helps people kind of navigate their infusion rates, how many needles, the gauges of the needles and stuff. I was having a really hard time figuring it out in the beginning. I was having adverse side effects and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And so she navigated through a lot of that. But I found through these support systems, people were talking about things like the trough levels, and they said, most people need to be between 800 and 1,000 for their IgG levels. SCIG would keep your trough levels kind of consistent through time, versus IVIG is going to drop them, and then you're going to get like a big spike.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what my doctor told me too. So, yeah, in the beginning, I was doing the SCIG every week. Now I'm doing it every other week. So I think there's like a little more dip there.
So, how'd you get to every other week? What changed your treatment plan from weekly to biweekly?
Per my insurance, I had to change brands. I've actually had to change, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, the first time I changed, I was offered a different brand that was once a month, but it was still SCIG. And so I was like, yeah, I'd way rather do that. When it was once a week, I had a really hard time. Like, I
So,
really
is this
struggled.
because of coverage issues?
I've switched twice, and the second switch, the most recent one, was the supplier. I have Quorum, which is through CVS. They're the supplier, and they told me that through my insurance, my previous company that gave me the plasma, I don't know exactly what it was, but it wasn't approved anymore. So then I switched brands, and that one, it was just once every 2 weeks. So yes, the most recent one. So I was pretty upset about that because I liked once a month, but the once a month, it was a longer infusion time. It was like hours.
Right.
Whereas
And I feel
once,
like you kind of get used to a brand in sense, like at least your body and you're used to any side effects that you may have too. Have you ever felt like you had any side effects from your SCIG?
in the very beginning, the first few, yes. The first one was really rough. And I always thought of myself as resilient. So I always thought, like, when it came to medications, like, oh, I won't have like side effects really. Like, it'll be fine. And then the first one, I felt like someone beat me up. Like, my stomach hurt so bad, like the outside, like it was sore.
Yeah.
I just felt dehydrated. I felt tired. It was really, really rough. And then after the first 3 or so, it went down. Now I basically have none. I just get itchy sometimes, so I take antihistamine when I do it now.
Wow. I mean, it's very nice to hear that you don't have side effects. And I know I previously talked to you about the fact that you do have some insurance coverage, because that is another thing that's mentioned a lot on the support pages, especially in our community, is how much these things can cost, especially in the States. Here in Canada, it is covered for myself, which is very nice. They also pay through in Canada for donating plasma, which is awesome. So if any of my Canadian friends or family is listening to this, like always go and donate plasma, and any of Aubrey's friends or family go and donate plasma in your area. I mean, we all need it, all of us in the community. And I think it's really important for us to have this space and kind of like talk about those things a little bit further about, you know, if you had the reactions and how things look setting up, because that's where I found a big void. And I don't know if you felt that, Aubrey, in the beginning of your journey as well.
Yeah, it was just weird in the beginning because I didn't know anything coming in. And so yeah, I mean, I was very lucky that when I started treatment, like I was on my dad's insurance plan and everything just kind of got figured out with my doctors, and my dad's helped me a lot and my family has helped me figure all those things out as well. But yeah, I talk about plasma donation a lot too, since you can get paid. I didn't know you could get paid in Canada, but I have had some friends here do plasma donation and get paid for it. So that's really cool. And we need that. And so, yeah, it's definitely a different experience being in the US, since you do need to rely so heavily on insurance and making sure you have the right plan.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know one of my medications here is a biologic, and it comes with a little receipt. It's like $3,000 a month. And from what I was reading, like plasma treatment for SCIG in the States is upwards of like $20,000, what is what the bills the insurance companies are receiving. So that is pretty shocking for me to like kind of look at and see the difference between us and you guys, I guess, kind of thing. Like us and you
Yeah.
guys, that sounds so bad. So we get paid through only Griffles here, I want to mention, in Canada. So we don't get paid through like the Canadian Blood Services. And that is something that I know my friends have mentioned to me if I make a post that they kind of get confused about. Do you know where people would donate kind of in your area, Aubrey?
Yeah, so there's CSL plasma. There's pretty much one in most like major city areas. That's a big one. And basically, you can just show up and you do like a little physical. Once you donate, they'll give you this like debit card type thing with the money on it. So that's kind of nice. And then also Octapharma. And then I can't remember the other one, but there's a
Yeah,
few
no worries.
like that. So yeah, like if you just look it up in your area, and then there's sometimes specials for new donors where like your first time you get paid more, things like that. In my college town, actually, a lot of people did it. We had a CSL plasma, and my boyfriend actually used to do it too. So it was kind of cool hearing his perspective of what they go through there.
Wow, that's amazing. I haven't heard anybody's perspective yet on like donating plasma. I tried to donate blood before I found out that I was
Yeah.
sick. So I got told like no more donating blood. What are you doing? And I was like, I didn't know that. Like I thought I was good. So I haven't heard anybody's perspective on plasma, but I do know it takes longer. So could you give us a little bit like of an insight of what that process is?
Yeah, so it is a lot longer, and I think for some people it's more uncomfortable than donating blood because they take out your blood and then they separate your plasma from your blood and then they put your blood back in. And I think that's kind of weird.
Totally.
But yeah, so I think for some people, they say the needle is like pretty big too. It's bigger than when you're just, getting blood drawn for a lab.
Right.
Yeah, and it can be pretty long, and people need to make sure they're hydrated, that they've eaten, and things like that. And also, there's other certain requirements too. It can't be recently after getting a piercing or a tattoo, and so there's kind of random requirements like that. But they check that in the beginning, and some people don't qualify based on the initial. And I don't know what you would call that. I guess it's like a physical.
Right. Yeah. They kind of have like this whole questionnaire you go through, and there's just this bunch of questions, just like the blood and, the tattoos and all of it. So thank you for giving us that insight to that. I hope that everyone honestly hears this and they're like, wow, I'm going to go make some money donating plasma tomorrow.
Yes, I encourage it.
Right? So how was like your mental and physical health through, I mean, the diagnosis and through your journey even up until now?
Yeah, so it's been a pretty rough road, but the last few years have been a lot better. So now I'm 25, so coming up on 6 years. So I'd say the first 2 to 3 years were really hard. I was still in school and I was juggling a lot of different things. And when I first started the treatment, it started to get a lot better. I wasn't sick all the time, everything was going great. So, about 6 months down the road from when I started treatment, I went home for Thanksgiving break in November of my sophomore year. And I went back to the doctor that diagnosed me, and I told him that I really got my life back and I was really excited. And he just said we were going to do some lab work. So, I had blood drawn and didn't really think much of it. And then he called me a few days later and said that my white blood cells were extremely low. And I didn't really understand what that meant. And he said, well, it can be a lot of different things. What worst case scenario, like leukemia. And I was like, what? This is crazy. I feel like I just survived like a catastrophe. And now
You're
I
here
have other
again.
problems. Yeah.
Right.
And so he said, it's fine. Don't panic. Like, we don't know what it is. Just go back to school. So I went back to school, and there's like this awkward time period in a lot of colleges in the US where you go back to school from Thanksgiving break, and then you're only at school for about 3 weeks. Then you go home again for Christmas. And so while I was at school during those 3 weeks, I was getting ready to just say my goodbyes. I was being so dramatic. I didn't know if I was going to go back to school. I didn't know if I was sick with something else. I just had so much trauma from just being sick and getting diagnosed with something.
It's so
And
hard.
yeah, and I didn't know what to think. So I went home for Christmas. I went with my parents to see a hematologist, which they specialize in blood. So they know a lot more of the details of blood work and different counts. And so I talked to them about the white blood cells, and the doctor said that it seemed fine, that we should just monitor it. So I got an ultrasound on my abdomen, and they also found that I had an enlarged spleen. And I think that's somewhat common in people with CVID.
Yeah, so did you ever have like mono or anything before that enlarged that spleen prior, or did they just find this enlarged spleen?
No, not that I knew of. Like,
Yeah.
it's possible I had mono at some time and just didn't realize it. But no, there wasn't really an explanation. It was weird because it was kind of a relief to figure that out, because that then explained the low white blood cells. But yeah, I'm not quite sure because I've had like scans and ultrasounds since, and my spleen is still enlarged. And the white blood cell counts have been a problem ever since then. And it's gotten better, it's gotten worse. But I've had over the past several years, I've had 2 bone marrow biopsies. Originally, they didn't know if I possibly had some type of cancer. Both the bone marrow biopsies were negative. But little did I know that that was just the beginning. Just finding out about those low white blood cells. There was so much that happened after where then we were seeing the enlarged lymph nodes. Then they were telling me I could possibly have lymphoma. So I just got diagnosed with CVID. Now I'm wondering if I have leukemia. Now I'm wondering if I have lymphoma. And so those few years right after diagnosis were really hard because it just didn't stop with just having a chronic illness. And so I ended up having a couple surgeries after the lymph nodes were discovered to see if I had lymphoma. And I also didn't have lymphoma. So lots of biopsies, no cancer. As of today, never found cancer. So that's good.
We're happy to hear no cancer. However, a lot of other things to unpack there. I mean, the spleen, what do you have to do to control that in terms of your spleen being enlarged? Like, do you have to adjust your life according to that?
As of now, no. We basically just monitor my white blood cell counts since it is related to that. But for instance, when I was taking my medication for GLILD, because GLILD is actually an autoimmune disorder.
Right.
I was taking an immunosuppressant. So it was kind of counteracting because CVID is an immune deficiency. So it was really complicated because we were seeing low white blood cells. And so we had to monitor that a lot of, am I going to take medication that's going to make the white blood cells lower, and looking into all of that. So yeah, with the enlarged spleen, I don't think there's really much you can do about it. It's pretty stagnant for now. I think the only thing that I've kind of seen is when it is enlarged, you are at higher risk of like rupture or tear. I have not had that happen thus far, but it definitely is a fear of mine of, if you get in any kind of injury around like your rib cage, it's possible it could rupture.
And the enlarged lymph nodes and the low white blood cells and all of this, I assume that you're still to this day, they're gonna keep an eye on that and follow that, because with now you're saying this is a primary immune deficiency, but not only that, you also have an autoimmune on top of that. So like you said, they're just kind of working against each other. So I would assume that really needs to be followed closely.
Yeah. So, I mean, at some points, I think it's a relief that I am monitoring my health all the time, because I know a lot of young people that are healthy. They're like, oh, I haven't been to the doctor in like 5 years. And I'm like,
that can be scary.
You should go get some blood work done.
What do you not know in 5 years? I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why I encourage everyone. I'm like, even if you feel fine, even if you feel great, like I would still recommend having a primary care physician, getting blood work done, because I feel like over these last like 6 years or so, I've been closely monitoring my health, and I feel like it does comfort me that like I have doctors and specialists that are watching, and that if other things were to go wrong, we would also probably be able to catch that too. And so, yeah, I mean, but it is a lot because, in the beginning, I was in college, I had jobs, I had internships, I was in a sorority, and I was trying to live a normal life on top of all this. And it's not normal to be going to the doctor all the time and getting blood drawn, and it's a lot. But
it's so much to juggle while you're just like, you're a kid / young adult and trying to navigate life like anybody else, right? And then you throw this on top and it really throws you for a loop.
Yeah, 100%. And I've written something on my website where I talked about how this feels like a full-time job. And I've heard a lot of other people with chronic illnesses say the same thing of, yeah, it's like a job that you didn't sign up for and you can't quit it.
You can't quit. Yeah, no unsubscription here. So can you share a little bit more about some stuff that you write about on your website and what kind of got you into that? What inspired you to really open up your story? I know you said at the beginning it was hard, and I found that as well. It's hard in the beginning to start and think that your voice matters out there and that other people would care to understand what you're going through. So what got you to the point that you were like, yeah, a website and advocation, and I want people to donate plasma? How'd that look?
Yeah, so yeah, for the first few years, while I was also going through everything with, my blood cell counts, my lymph nodes, getting surgeries, all this, throughout that time, I was very apprehensive. I don't think I'd ever talked about it online or posted about it on my Instagram or anything. And I wouldn't even talk about it with some friends sometimes. And I think my mindset in that moment was that this makes me weird. People are going to think that this is my fault, or that like I wasn't taking care of myself, or maybe people won't believe that it's real. And so I definitely had a mindset change when I was graduating college, because I realized that I still managed to graduate college. I still managed to have an amazing experience in college and do all these different things, and that it didn't stop me. And I felt really proud of myself. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to post on my Instagram. Like, this feels so weird, but I'm just going to do it. So I wrote a little Instagram post. I posted about it, and like, people were so sweet. A lot of people were commenting or talking to me about it. And so then I moved to San Diego, which is where I live now. And I started my post grad job where I was working with people that owned websites. And I actually realized that I loved websites, and I also like writing. And I thought, yeah, this would be a great opportunity to talk about all of this, because there isn't really a lot about it online, especially then. I think I've seen more people talking about it now.
Right.
But when I was first looking up CVID, I didn't see much, or I saw things that were scary.
Girl, you were one of the only people I found. Like, I was like, why is there nobody out here? Hello?
Literally. And when I very first looked it up, the first thing I saw was life expectancy.
Me too. No way.
I almost just, my gosh, I almost passed out right there. I was like, I don't feel like I'm gonna die young. Like, I felt so like weird about it. And I also saw like some negative things. And I don't
The internet can
know.
be a scary place.
Very scary, yeah. And I feel like it's hard because a lot of times online we see a lot of negative things about everything. And that can really skew your vision. And I got really scared that I was never going to have a normal life, because I had all these things, that I wanted to do. I want to travel, I want to have hobbies, I want to have friends, I want to, have a significant other and things like that. And I was scared that I had nothing, that nothing was going to be possible. But that was just because I didn't see anyone doing it, and I didn't know what people with my disease were doing.
I mean, I think that sometimes can be the downfall of social media. I think sometimes you see all the good or all the bad. So you're in the IVIG and SCIG community like me, and you see a lot of bad posts back to back to back to back, and you're like, wow, so many people are having bad reactions or
Mhm.
a bad needles, or well, you're only seeing the bad because the bad people are out there asking for help, trying to advocate, trying to do the things. So try to remember that there's so many other people out there that are having success, that did, like you, get a quality of life back. Like, I mean, how important has that been in this aspect of your journey, that you gained a quality of life back from receiving plasma treatment?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it turned everything around for me. And the way that I was sick in the very beginning was excruciating and miserable and extremely isolating.
I feel that. I was in the
Yeah.
hospital earlier this week puking from adverse side effects from plasma treatment, and advocating for myself in a room full of people who think I'm wrong and who think, I guess, that I knew my body better than them, but that it wasn't serious enough to be in the ER. And I'm sure that you've had moments along your journey where there's been seeds of doubt. So have you ever had that where, maybe there was some sort of medical advocacy that you had to do for yourself, and you're like, wow, why am I, sitting here trying to justify myself to you?
Yeah, I feel like I think a lot of it too is like explaining when you have to go to urgent care, you have to go to the hospital. Yeah, like figuring out how to explain it and make sure that you're bringing it up, I think is what I've noticed of like, it definitely can be tiring because I feel like I'm saying the same thing a million times. But yeah, of when I go into an urgent care, when I go into a hospital, if something's happening, of being like, hey, like, just so you know, like, if it's something with my lungs, like I have this lung condition, this has happened, like, yeah. And it showing that you're kind of in a different position than a lot of people that are walking in there. And there's a lot to know and there's a lot to explain. Yeah, I mean, I've also, tried to figure out too, what are ways besides my treatment that I can also help myself feel better. I think that's something that's kind of hard too, is like, doctors are there to prescribe and diagnose. But I think aside from that, I've also had to figure out on my own of like what like things in my lifestyle might make me feel better. Like, because a lot of times it's hard to know, like, is there a supplement I can take or things like that. So I've kind of had to go off on my own too and figure that out. And I've written on my website about that too, as well, of like other kind of lifestyle things that have just helped me, even if it's not medically, just help me with my quality of life.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. I'm always telling people, like, drink your water, eat your fiber, like, do all the good things. I hired a personal trainer and really tried to just get back to the gym and eating healthy and good habits and good sleep. And I think people don't realize sometimes, like, that foundation is your body is an ecosystem and you are the caretaker. And when you're poisoning it and then expecting it to treat you nicely, you're kind of in a little bit of a state of delusion and insanity. You're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So
Yeah.
we cannot treat our bodies as though they're just disposable. And I think that's something highly to recommend. And also that, the hospitals, like you said, they're there for emergencies 100%. And sometimes when us chronically ill or immune deficiency patients are coming in there, and whether or not you're explaining like yourself that I have this lung disease and I have this primary immune deficiency, it kind of gets overlooked sometimes. And even as of last week when I did go in, like I got the literal sentence, "I'm just a dumb ER doctor." And what he meant by that is that he had to go look it up. Like, he doesn't know what common variable immune deficiency is, what a primary immune deficiency is. And then to get a little bit more technical, my doctor did kind of, but didn't really put the name common variable immunodeficiency, even though that's like what it is. And was like, oh, you have a Tachi deficiency. And it gets really complicated from there. So advocating for yourself, taking care of your body, like these are just really important baselines to start at.
And yeah, and that's another thing that's hard about having a rare disease too, is definitely when someone says, "I've never heard of that. What is that?" And when you're in like a medical setting and it's like, "Oh gosh, like I'm not even a doctor, like I'm just trying to figure it out too." I had to really start preparing myself of like how to explain it in certain settings too.
Yeah,
Like,
me too. I feel like you almost need this like little book of like, oh, I'll write my own jot notes so that I can like let you know what's up and where we're gonna start.
yeah, definitely. I was like, okay, like I feel like the first year or so I didn't really even get what CVID truly meant and what primary immune deficiencies truly meant. And when I started my website and started doing more research, that's when I found out so much more too. Because it's hard as someone that has no medical background.
Yeah, definitely. You're trying to navigate a situation that you barely understand. And then when you do turn sometimes to the medical professionals, sometimes it's maybe not the right ones that know exactly about what you're talking about, or it is the right ones, but there is only a certain amount of things they can do, right? Like this is the treatment that you're going home with and you need to start this now. And so then from there you're just like, wow, this is my new life and this is what I'm doing. And you engrave that into a new pattern. But when you realize the quality of life that it gives you back, I think that kind of outweighs a lot of it. I don't know about you, but that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there anything that you kind of want to share, Aubrey, that you feel like you didn't get in there about your journey or your story or something that could help somebody out there?
Yeah, I definitely, I would say in the beginning I had a really hard time with anxiety and really, really negative feelings. And for people that just recently got diagnosed, like I definitely want to say that it gets better. And I know that everybody says that. And in the moment, it feels like it's never going to get better because I never thought it was going to, but it does.
It
And I
does.
think also realizing that you can't control everything and you need to
Yes.
let go of what you can't control. Because for the longest time, I was so mad that this was happening to me. And I was so jealous of everybody that's healthy. And it was not a good headspace. So just remembering that you need to just focus on what you can control. I know that I can control how I treat myself, how I advocate for myself, how I think about things, how I respond to things. And it's not always easy, but it definitely has been a journey of figuring out that you can still be happy, you can still have a fulfilling life. Like, it is totally possible with this disease. Like, I've done everything that I've ever wanted to do and that other people can too. And I feel like that's my main purpose of my website and kind of what I talk about online too, is like, your life is not over, because I thought my life was over, and it was just starting, and it's still like just starting.
Well, I love that so much. And honestly, I think that that's so powerful. And thank you for being brave enough back then to talk about it, but not only then, now, and that you answered my questions back then, that you're here starting this journey with me, that you were willing to even share your story today. Because for me, it's just so cool to tell my family and friends when I'm doing this. I'm like, I'm having Aubrey on. She was one of the first people I ever reached out to. So really coming full circle here.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I love when people reach out, and I've gotten to talk to so many people, and it's crazy how many people are in such a similar position as us. And I didn't know that before. And once I started like talking on podcasts and everything, it was such a great feeling to get the word out there. And a lot of people have, kind of discovered my story and been able to talk to me because of a podcast that they found too.
Yeah, and I definitely want to recognize here for a moment that the Sick Boy podcast is where Aubrey's episode was on Common Variable Immune Deficiency and GLILD, and that is where I just genuinely felt like my journey started, of feeling like somebody out there was going to understand and there was somebody to turn to kind of find some answers. And I went on aubreyWithGrace.com, so go and check that out. And it gave me a lot of context on to kind of some more support that I could tap into, and thank you for doing that. I really appreciate you coming on today, Aubrey. It was just so amazing to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your kind words and all your support. And I'm really excited to listen to more episodes of this podcast too.
Thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to ChroniTalk, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.